Hi everyone, today we have Nate, co-founder of Mintbase, and I'm really pleased to have you here. I'm really glad we can really talk about NFTs. So, hi Nate.
Hello, nice to be here.
Just to have a little bit of introduction, can you just briefly describe what is Mintbase? Because I know you don't like to call it platform just because it's more than just platform. Can you just briefly tell to the audience what it is?
Sure, yeah. We are an experimentation playground, basically. So our goal is to enable more about the developers and being able to have them build their own NFT projects and being able to build their own sites away from our marketplace. So you have your OpenSea theory. Our theory is that everyone's going to have their own niche OpenSeas. And so enabling them to create their quick niche markets as fast as they can is kind of our main goal. So not to become the number one marketplace, but to be able to sort of fork the marketplace and create a very niche ticketing music festival thing. And then another thing could be focused on subscription services or who knows what.
Yeah, I got it. So it's basically it's more like a toolkit for developers and with experimentation with standards. So because you can extract more from near standards and from other standards, and we will talk about standards a bit later. And I also know that you decided to switch to near, and it was not easy decision, right? It was it was well thought decision. So what you can tell the reason behind it, why you think it's near the best ecosystem or for Mintbase, and what did you what did you consider during that time?
Yeah,
we're switching.
It's been a long process. So we deployed on Ethereum in 2018. We've done ticketing for all the different conferences and realized that Ethereum kind of had it has an end life, in my opinion. I think we're seeing three evolutions of chains. The first one was Bitcoin. Then we got smart contracts with the EVM, and now we're getting into this WASM landscape. Mm-hmm. So to me, all these sort of polygons, Aves, any sort of EVM forking is still stuck in this sort of second evolution. They're just sort of filling the void of a duct tape system. So now we're in this new world where I think we're still about a year away from actually everyone understanding this, because we can see Polygon, or we can see Solana is in the WASM world, and then we've got Polkadot is in the WASM world, and this is just where the shift is moving. So
yeah, that's right. And besides that, among other ecosystems, you still did choose near, right? What else made you think that this is the best choice?
So there's always the trifecta, right? We want to nail the three, speed, decentralization, and security. And how do you get all three of these things, bound together? Most chains kind of don't do so well in certain areas. So we have Solana, right? If I'm just focusing on the WASM chains, the big three was Solana, Polkadot, or Near. We chose that the way Solana is doing their decentralization, which is just basically throwing more CPU and heavier focus on just the input-output, versus Near is in this other world, which is sharding, where you can have multiple validators on multiple different shards, and that's how we see the real world where companies and individuals can eventually be validators themselves.
Yeah, basically horizontal scalability trumps vertical scalability, right? So
yep.
There's always a limit how you can vertically scale the system. There's always a limit what you can extract from a performance of specific machine.
Yep.
But there's with horizontal scalability, there is definitely another challenge, building the architecture of this scalable system, and Near is doing it quite well.
Yep.
What about standards? I know that Near has quite an advanced standard for NFT. What can you say about this? What is the advantage compared to Ethereum standards?
Yeah, standards are hard. We were a big part of going through the entire process of creating the standards, and it's just really complicated. It's fascinating because you have people who come in and contribute and then they get bored and move on, and then you have other people that come in, so you have all these opinions, and to get one thing changed, it can take, several months. Like I remember saying in August, it was like, oh, this will take like 2 months to like get sorted as a joke. And then 4 months later, we're still working on the same thing, trying to figure out how the event system works and the logging. But they're crucial. An NFT is really worthless unless you're able to, have what the EVM has, which is these nice NEP 721 standard. It's amazing that I can just go deploy a contract and have my NFTs automatically show up on OpenSea. That's not the case yet on Near, but we're getting really close to that being the case. And yeah, it's once that gets nailed, I think it's going to be a fascinating world. In the standards, we also really push for Sparrow is one of the ones that pushed us. It was the royalty standard. So if you go into the NEP 171, you look through all the MD files and you look at payouts. And so that's the guidelines for us to basically pay out standards. So we're not enforcing royalties, but it just makes it a lot, the social pressure for markets to implement the royalties, it's a lot easier to do, and you have less excuses to not do it.
Yes, that's right. And what about like multi-chain standards? Obviously at some point we will have it. From my opinion, what do you think about this? Do you also believe that we will have this NFT standard which will be cross-chain, and of course is compatible, or adapters on every chain, something like that, and what it will bring to the market?
Yeah, I'm someone with crazy hyper focus, so I like to just we have this multi-chain future, and you have L2s, right? And we have all these different options, like Optimism is coming onto the EVM. We can talk about why I don't think that's all that great of an idea. But when we look at L2s on Near, I'm excited to integrate little things. As long as your L1 works properly, then you should be able to use L2s for just tiny things like zero knowledge proofs and identity, and just being able to do your main transaction layer on top, and then hitting all these different little L2s to just do small incremental tasks.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I see. So by the way, regarding EVM, I know you're also not a big fan of EVM. Can you
I'm a huge fan of EVM. It was an amazing prototype that it works fabulously if you don't care about gas costs and security. It's pretty secure. I don't think the Ethereum's been hacked yet. And they haven't.
I mean security in terms of writing the language.
Yeah. I don't hate on Ethereum. I think I spent a large chunk of my time in blockchain, deep into the Ethereum landscape. But as a developer, I've been developing since 2007, almost every day of my life. Mm-hmm. If you look at my GitHub, it's just green for as far as the eye can see, and it still is green. And I need to quit developing because it's time to start focusing on the million other things that are going on. But as a developer, I've seen trends come up and down and go through the process. I started as a Flash developer. Then I moved on to PHP, and then a little bit into JavaScript, and then now you just see where things are heading. Yeah. And when you see something that doesn't interest you anymore, you know that the rest of the dev community is going to switch on. And so to me, that's where this WASM world is going to start heading. Devs are just going to not want to write Solidity anymore.
Yeah, I get it. And regarding NFTs applications in general, we already came up with so many use cases, we can talk about this as well, but what I'm wondering, why is there still not yet massive adoption, and what is your reason for this? Why you think we still not there? What is the hindering point?
Infrastructure just takes time. I'm pretty happy with the progress. When you think how long the internet took to get sorted, blockchain is really only maybe 10 years just into its existence, and the wallets are getting cleaner and easier. I'm actually pretty happy with the mass adoption progress that we're on right now. It's people are using it, people are interested. Slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah. It's the promise was that it will be much faster, and especially in 2017, everyone was thinking that like in a year we will get there, but we're not yet there. And regarding use cases, like you say you're happy with the progress. So what is your favorite use case for NFT right now, and what is you think like will be the massive one, the breakthrough use case in the future?
Yeah, all right. So to roll back to so the progress in 2013 is when we had the idea of Bitcoin, right? And that was the very first moment that we're like, oh, this is the mind explosion. We really couldn't do anything on it. 2017 was the first time Ethereum was actually kind of useful, but there weren't really any applications that were working. You didn't have any wallets. I think MetaMask was literally the only option at that time. There was no Argent. Their Trust wallet, I think, was just in its baby stages. So you didn't even have wallets in 2017. And now we're sitting at 2020. You have to build infrastructure for those things to get created. And you know how long it takes to build a simple website, right? I mean, you can't just, it takes a year and a half to get things going. Near's only been around for really a year and a half as well. And so now we're starting to see more apps coming out and infrastructure projects like Mintbase, we are getting there, like figuring out our indexer, running all that sort of stuff. It takes a lot of time and a lot of very, very focus, hardcore focus. Yep. So was that part of your question? What was the?
Yeah. But this is now clear. Okay, we get to that point like when we still building infrastructure, and like once the infrastructure is as easiest to use as Google Cloud and like Amazon, like we definitely will have like this heat of use cases. But take a look on what happened with Amazon. Why Amazon is actually the biggest infrastructure provider right now, because they had like the first very scalable use case, where they were able to deliver to the market.
And it took them like 10 years to dial that in, right? At first it was books. That was their number one thing. Like for us, I always say like our books is tickets. Like I don't want to be a ticketing company. I want to give people the aha moment of I own my ticket. I can give it away on Twitter. I can get 10 tickets and give it to my friend, and having that ownership move around. We're still in that stage of no one's really had that aha moment, right? We've had, art was the very first NFT land. Now we're in this PFP bananas world, and we're starting to move into the let's see what that next little bit is. So I think the perfect storm is really happening. Infrastructure is getting built. Taylor Swift is like pushing out NFTs. We've got Mark Cuban, who has the Dallas Mavericks, who's going to potentially start experimenting in his own world. Like to me, this tiny little hype cycle of PFPs and art is just such a small sliver of what's about to go down over the next 10 years.
Yeah, but interesting also that how it's similar to know how some modern districts are built when first creators come and make it popular, make it hippie, and then it becomes very attractive for majority of population, and some wealth comes there. And the same thing is kind of happening in blockchain space. Now there's a lot of creators coming to blockchain space, and what do you think we need to introduce within Web3, infrastructure, in general, not only technical, maybe some ecosystem infrastructure, to bring even more creators? What help do they need from your opinion?
So you said the Amazon Web Services. You can almost think of Mintbase as becoming the Amazon Web Services of this world. Our goal is to have companies and people come and deploy their own contracts and go and get weird with that thing, right? So once you have an understanding of what a smart contract even is, and developers start realizing what that means, I think that's the new world.
The way to go. Yeah. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for this interview. It was quite insightful.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.